should be yourself, King. Should be yourself. And really the greatest thing that you could be is to be yourself.
What's up, everybody? This is the Ike Inspiration Podcast, and today I have a guest named Samir. And Samir is a serial entrepreneur building a Web3 platform, and has going through and has gone through a lot with entrepreneurship in terms of scaling businesses. And I'm excited to have him on to talk about his entrepreneurial journey and what that looks like for him. So, Samir, can you please do us the favor of introducing yourself to the audience and just describing who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Ike, Samir Elkamouny. Right now I'm the CEO of Avanti3. Also, the founder of Fetch Funnel. Avanti3 is a Web3 platform that's just going to completely revolutionize the music industry as we know it. And Fetch Funnel is a performance marketing agency. So to your point, Fetch Funnel scaled hundreds of businesses. Our specialty was really taking 6 and 7 figure businesses, getting them to 8 and 9 figures. So yeah, I've seen a lot. These aren't my first ventures. I've had other ventures as well. So certainly a serial entrepreneur at this point. I can hopefully it's okay. I call myself that. And yeah, excited to be here. Excited to encourage others to potentially follow in a similar footpath or wherever you want to go, Ike.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I love it, man, and I know you built a platform that has helped other scaled businesses, and we can take some time to focus on that, Samir. For you built Fetch Funnel. So, and I'm curious. I know you did the Fetch Funnel method. What does that look like, and what does the process of scaling businesses overall look like for you?
So every business is different. So I think, certainly an important thing to, whatever differentiate. As far as, the Fetch Funnel method was derived from putting a methodology in place that enables us to help really any business systematically. And the first step of that is just setting goals and expectations. So I would say no matter what business anybody is in, that's absolutely the first step of what you should be doing, because otherwise you're trying to run a race that you don't know where the finish line is, or you're trying to accomplish some goal that you don't even know what it is. So 100%, that's the most important thing is really setting clear goals and expectations, and then iterating those across the entire business, letting everybody know that those are the goals. Every team member, every stakeholder, whatever it is, making sure everyone's on board. So, and making those goals, having the goal that you feel like you can accomplish, and maybe a stretch goal. Okay, this is going to be a little bit harder, but let's really shoot for that stretch goal. Is always a great thing to have. Get out of your comfort zone. Don't just go with, okay, we did 100,000, should be easy to do 110,000. What if you did 200,000? What does that look?
Yeah.
It's like a great book. Like, it's easier to 10x than 2x, for example, right? So just because it gets you out of that framework of just kind of the minuscule, improvements. And then from there, our methodology is really just understanding and doing a really deep dive into understanding who your ideal customer profile is. It's so important for every business entrepreneur. It doesn't matter when you try to be everything to everyone, you're really like nothing to nobody. You really want to make sure that you understand who you're trying to serve, what you're trying to accomplish, what makes you unique, why should someone buy your product or service. And that's what separates you in the market, right? If I talk to some service-based businesses, for example, and they'll say, well, we've got 5 stars online. Like, dude, that's not why I'm buying your service or something, right? What is your key points of differentiation? And then once you understand exactly who your ideal customer profile is, and you want to dig as deep as you can on that, because just saying, oh, it's all snowboarders. No, that's way too broad. That's your addressable market. That's not your ICP. And then knowing who that is and understanding what your unique selling points are and what the benefits of what your product or service offers to anybody, then you're really able to sort of wrap that into an irresistible offer of some kind, right? And really position your product or service in the most powerful, most effective way to acquire new customers and to make them an offer they just can't refuse. And just, whether that's backing up with a guarantee or how they're going to feel or whatever it is, making those things stand out. And then that informs everything else we do: the creative strategy, the messaging, the media plan, the campaign strategy, all of the things, right? All those type, but that initial research and framework and everything that you find out from that sort of instructs everything else. And then of course, launch, test, improve, scale, test.
Testing. Yeah. I know the nature of entrepreneurship is essentially like failing fast and just pretty much figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And I'm curious, you mentioned setting goals for yourself and your business. What were the goals in particular for Fetch and Funnel, and what were the expectations set for yourself?
Yeah. So I think it's absolutely important to have North Star metrics. That's really important. I think if you're chasing too many things, you're saying, well, we're going to try to hit this revenue target, plus we're going to try to reduce retention by this much, plus we're going to try to increase our pricing by this, plus it's too many things. So I think it's really important to have sort of one North Star metric. Ours was always churn, reducing churn, right? And I think that's important for any business. If you can improve your customer lifetime value, that's one of the most important numbers that you can ever increase, right? And so getting people to stick with you longer, getting people to spend more money with you, whatever it is. And so even though we certainly had revenue targets and revenue goals, a lot of it stemmed around making sure we were always reducing churn and going after bigger clients, right? Because especially the level of service we provide, we want to make sure that we're able to do all of the things. And sometimes you're not able to do that when somebody doesn't pay you enough or they don't have enough budget and things like that, right? So, so a lot of those. And then you sprinkle in other things along the way, right? Okay, we want to hire a couple strategic positions, and that's what this looks like. And then we want to make sure that we're doing some, cool partnerships and this and that, and just different things. And so then those things certainly lend themselves to, again, going back to like the North Star metric, right? But just having like those other goals, because you kind of want to back into like, okay, now how are we going to accomplish this? And and usually we weren't setting our goals too far out as well, because it was something that we just want to make sure that we're iterating on and improving really quickly. So a lot of our goals were usually in like 90-day sprints. We're just like, okay, what's it going to take to get to this next 90 days? And just really working really hard on that and backing it into, okay, what are we going to do today? What are we going to do this week? Right. To kind of accomplish the 90-day. For me, especially in a business like that, a year is too far. So, I kind of do that with all my companies, because I feel like with a lot of times, what's the saying? You underestimate, you overestimate what you can do it in a year.
Yeah.
You underestimate what you can do in like 5 years or whatever. Right. Yeah. And I think that's so true. So when you say a year, it's easier to overestimate. When I say 90 days, okay, like it's not a lot harder to overestimate. And I feel like our sprints move faster.
Yeah, I that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting, because you're setting all these goals for yourself as you market your business and continue to build it. And I know in life and in entrepreneurship, like just the nature of things don't always go as planned, and I'm sure you've gone through a lot of failures and not as much, and sometimes those failures I'm sure set you up for success. But one thing on this podcast that I love talking about is highlighting those times of struggles where people have to go through those failures in order to persevere. So I'm curious, what was perhaps the most difficult thing that you personally have ever went through, or the business itself, that you had to overcome?
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to be careful how I word this, but I had a business partner.
Okay.
And I started Fetch and Funnel. Avanti3, I've got a couple of business partners, but in Fetch and Funnel, I started with a business partner, and we parted ways after a couple of years. Let's word it that way.
Okay.
And it was really important for that to happen, for us to grow. If he stayed within the organization, we would not have grown. And he was actually one of the biggest things holding us back.
Okay.
And it wasn't due to, money or paying him or anything like that. Right. Because obviously, certainly pay someone well, found or whatever, and then certainly there's, you could reallocate those budgets. And it wasn't because like, oh, I could replace him and they could grow the business more. Sure. That's a thing, but that wasn't the problem. The biggest problem was culture. So he was actually not a good culture fit.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to be very
Expand on
careful with
that.
the words I use just in case he's listening.
It's okay, man.
I don't think he will, but just in case.
We ain't snitching here or anything or do it. Yeah, but yeah, I'm curious. What do you mean he wasn't a good culture fit?
Culture's a really hard thing to maintain and to grow, and culture arguably is one of the most important things that you can positively or negatively impact in your business to like monumentally change everything, right? Because without your team, you're not going to go anywhere. And who you hire and where they're sitting and and what their role, responsibilities, all that stuff is so important. And and I was very proud of the team that I had built. I was very proud of, and I enjoyed everybody's company, and not that I need to be best friends with everybody. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I want them to be good people, respectful, all the things, right? And, and I think he just made people feel uncomfortable, and there was no lewd comments. There was no like things happening in passing where it's like, okay, this is very obvious, because I think those things, again, they're obvious. So then it's, you can course correct or go to them and, hey man, that was an inappropriate comment. Don't say those things, blah, 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 and you'd be fine. But there was never anything they said. It wasn't anything. Right. And it was just them and how they acted, whatever. And, and that becomes really difficult. And in particular, all our management positions were filled by women. It just happened that way. It wasn't like purposeful. That's what happened. Yeah. And they in particular are the ones that felt the most uncomfortable. So then your people, and again, nothing, whatever, nothing uncalled for, whatever, but just who he was. So, and not enough self-awareness and, to change it. And so that's really difficult. It held us back for a long time. Luckily I built enough rapport with team members for them to feel comfortable enough to tell me, which is really important, right? Everybody says, oh, I have an open door policy, but okay, do people feel comfortable coming to you? How you react and your actions that you take afterwards. Do they feel seen? Do they feel hurt? All those things are so important. And it was just one of those moments that you go, okay, oh no, now what? Right? Okay, now I've identified the problem, but the person's not self-aware enough. So now I've potentially got to get them out of the business. Otherwise we're going to stay where we are. We're going to lose some of our best people and have all these other issues. And, and it sucked. It kind of affected us. We got some bad Glassdoor reviews. Obviously potential clients started, Google Fetch Funnel reviews and see a couple bad Glassdoor reviews. It doesn't help, right? It certainly did negatively impact business for sure. And we lost some really great team members because of it and some other issues, but that was a tough one. And then not only that, but it was an opportunity to, I guess to like really make sure we were positively impacting the culture moving forward, and I think I also had maybe some imposter syndrome happening at the time because this business partner was actually my boss in a previous job.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't look at him that way anymore, but you have these subconscious thoughts of just kind of like, okay, am I going to be able to lead better than him? Well, I always used him to fire people, and I always used his experience to do a lot of things that am I going to, be able to do that, blah, blah, blah. So, it was an interesting, kind of a thing to overcome, but out of it was amazing, right? At the end result of it, but it was a very painful process, very difficult. I think getting rid of business partners can be more difficult than getting a divorce, and that's why you should take it more just as serious. Let's say that.
Yeah, that's so interesting, man. So, just for clarity, Dick. So your business partner was your boss, and did you fire you fired your boss or like
No. He was my
like
boss in a previous job.
oh okay
You know,
okay
and we worked together and we built some really good rapport. And I was one of the best team members there.
gotcha
So I ended up sort of becoming my own boss at that
gotcha
company, really. Like,
yeah
but I would use him for strategy calls or certain things, and he would jump in, and we were very good at good cop, bad cop, whatever we needed to do to kind of get around and do deals and whatnot. And so then, so then coming out of that, it's we were equals, and I was the one running the company, so there was never there was never any question about, but we were equals in a way, right? I was not his boss, he was not my boss, but it's hard to come to someone at that time and be like, hey man, like people are uncomfortable, and I asked him point blank, I said, what do you think of the team? Like what are your thoughts on our team, right? And he said, I don't like anybody on the team. And I'm like, dude, that says everything.
That's
like,
terrible.
I worked so hard. I love everybody on our team. So I'm like, just listen to the words that just came out of your mouth. Right? So I think if you could get someone to acknowledge it, that's half the battle right there.
Of course. Well, yeah, it's pretty hard to work in a place where you don't like anyone you're working with. And I don't know. I know, especially when talking to men, it's kind of hard to convince someone or tell them that you may be doing something wrong unless they're acknowledging it for themselves. And so, that's a very interesting dilemma. And I want to thank you, Samir, for sharing that, because for me, it begs the question: what does building a team look like? And for me, I'm curious. Before I talk, how big was your team that that you're in that story that you shared?
Yeah, so Fetch Funnel about 25 people.
Yeah. Okay, 25 people. Yeah, I so with my businesses and the work I do is the team is a lot smaller. It's like 3 to 5 people, but I've had my fair share of hiring and firing people, and it's never a fun thing. You know what I'm saying? No. It can get kind of awkward. It's kind of weird. Well, I'm curious for you. How do you go about finding people who can help evolve the mission that you're on, and how do you go about letting go of people? Because that's like a weird thing, and it's something that I would like to get better at.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm very clear on those things, and I have immense clarity there. So, it's funny because I was just having this conversation the other day. I was advising a friend of mine who just they're needing to replace their operations manager. So, I think there's a couple things. So, first is hiring, right? So you want to really be impressed, right? Like I think it's so important to be impressed. I think it's so important to just, so many times maybe I hear someone, well, there's not anybody better or something like that. No, just wait, keep interviewing, find the right person, be very clear about their roles and responsibilities, very clear about what you want from that person. As you're building the team, you're always looking for gaps, right? Gaps. Gaps to fill and everything else. And sometimes it's just additional resources for what you're already doing, right? Hey, I need another copywriter. I already have a copywriter, but I need another copywriter. But still, maybe look for another copywriter that complements the copywriter that you already have, right? Maybe the one you have is quirky and fun, and that's kind of their style. Then get one that's maybe a little bit more serious, or write slightly better sales copy, or just has a slightly different skill set, right? It's really important. And then I always give everybody a test during the interview process. I've always done that. I will always do that. I don't care what the role is.
Okay.
I give them a test, and don't feel bad about doing that. If they're not willing to do it, you got your answer. They don't really want to work for you that bad. Right. And that's an important thing to differentiate as well. Like, make the job enticing. Why should someone work for you? If it's a startup, you don't have big budgets, give them a better title. Right. If it's a medium-sized company, maybe it's the benefits, like whatever it is. Right. So, because a lot of people say, oh, I've lost certainly some talent to, just them being able to get a lot more money and things like that. Right. It just happens. But, and so always do some sort of test. You can make it paid if you want. You can make it, you can ask them to do it for free. I would never do it for free if I asked them to do work that then I turn around and use. If I ask them to do some, whatever, right, then I'll pay them for that time. And then see how they do, right? That's kind of like your first iteration on, make sure you set the right guideline. Sometimes I'm very broad. Sometimes I just go, please just go do this thing. I don't really give them. And they ask me some questions like, whatever you feel like. And then I just kind of see how they gauge it. And then for some, I'm very specific. I need this exactly. This is the outcome I'm looking for, blah, blah, blah. Please go and do this. And then see how they come back. I think it's, again, very dependent on the role that you're going for. But, you're hiring a sales rep, go through a sales call, pretend to be a prospective client. Just, they're not going to be an expert, but just see how they do. See what kind of questions they ask. See how they think outside the box. If they're not willing to do a mock call with you, you just got your answer, right? Yeah. So, and I think that's really important. And then once they're hired, evaluate them harshly in those first 90 days. Yeah. So I don't tell anybody this, but we have an internal rule that everyone internally knows. You are on a 90-day trial. So I will never give you crazy high responsibility. I'll never give you our biggest clients. I'll never give you any of that ever, right? I'm always going to start you off kind of in the lower rung. And I found that if someone impressed me within the first 90 days, they continue to impress me and be an awesome team member forever. But if they never impress me within the first 90 days, then they never impress me for the long haul. Yeah. So I think it's so important to just let them go immediately. Hey, I just don't think this is a fit. I really appreciate everything. That's it. Right. And, I know you find something better, blah, 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 whatever. And make sure that they're passionate about what you're doing. People are just looking for a job, forget it. Like, just make sure they're really passionate about it. And I think it's just really important. Like, certainly, I have like a 1 strike, 2 strike kind of thing. Someone gets 1 strike, maybe I allow it. If there's a 2 strike, then immediately you go on a performance improvement plan. Again, doesn't matter the job or the role, whatever. I shouldn't say never. 95% of people I've let go were never shocked. They knew it was coming. Yeah. And especially with a performance improvement plan, very easy to Google and find examples of those. But you just go to the person, you say, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm not really happy with the performance of what the roles and responsibilities clearly state this. This is what I'm getting. I need these 3 areas to improve. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. And if that doesn't happen within the next 30 days, then unfortunately, we're going to have to part ways. And I'm going to and we're going to meet every week, or we're going to meet every 2 weeks to go through that again together. And it could be a report card, a scorecard, whatever. You just make it very clear what they need to do. And you'll find they start looking for a job, and you already know. And then they leave after 2 weeks or whatever, and it's fine. It's easier for you. So, and I think it's really important, hiring fast, firing fast, and promoting the fastest.
I was actually about to ask you, what do you think of the thought, hire slow, fire fast? Because that's what I feel like that's the advice I've heard a couple of times, but you're saying just hire fast, fire fast.
Okay. So I should be careful with that. Yeah. I think hire slow probably means let's make sure that we're interviewing enough people and really looking for, what we want and things like that. Somehow I've been really fortunate to get really good people really quickly, but I feel like it's because I'm ridiculously clear about who I'm looking for. Yeah. So my assistant does a lot of the front end for that. I'm not looking at resumes. She's helping me with that. She's going through everything, but I make it so clear. And recently I had hired a sales guy, for example, and I went to her and I said, I want them to have X amount of years of experience. I want them to have started their own agency.
Oh, wow.
And I want them to had left the agency and gone and made sure they also had like a bigger corporate role. So they got corporate sales trained, and I'm like, and if we don't find someone who didn't start their agency, it's okay. But if my ideal world, it's this person, this is what they look like. This is the experience they have. This is the knowledge they're going to have. This is how they're going to be super excited. They're going to message us. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to message us on LinkedIn, take it, blah, blah, blah. And I was so clear, and we found exactly that person. Had started their own agency, didn't want to deal with the hustle and bustle of payroll and running the team and doing all the things. They just weren't a good operator. And so they went off, did a corporate thing, and now they're looking for a new gig, and they want to be back in kind of, smaller company and whatnot. And so because I was so clear about it, the second she saw the person come in, she's like, hey, I think this is our guy. And then immediately I one interview and I'm like, job offer pretty much, right? Like one meeting, quick test. Okay, great, job offer, right? So I think you have to move really quickly when you find the right person. So I think like hire slow. Okay, take your time. Like I said earlier, make sure you find the right person. But then the second you find the right person, act quickly, because I've made that mistake as well, right? I was like, well, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll interview a couple more people. And then I'm like, oh, no, I really like that guy. No, he was really good. Okay, go back to him and reach out to him. And he's like, oh, sorry, I already accepted an offer 3 days ago. And
and usually the ones that are really good have multiple offers or multiple options for a reason.
Yeah, so you got to act quick. That's why I feel like you got to act quick. But it all depends. I mean, some of my best team members weren't looking for jobs, and I was reaching out to them. They already worked at another place, and just giving them a new opportunity and stuff like that. So yeah, different ways you can do it for sure.
Yeah, it's a very weird thing. And I'm a very like intuitive person, and I have this trouble between going through my gut feeling versus just having like a logical way of like making if that makes sense. But I feel like for me, like, because when I hire people, I feel like a good sign is like if after like a couple weeks or so, I don't have to worry about them getting the job done. Like I'm not even thinking about it. I just know they're going to do it. Then that's a good sign. But if I'm going about in the back of my head, like, oh, do I have the reminder of this or do we have to do another meeting? Then I feel like that's a bad sign. I don't know. And I feel like there's no reason why I should even be having that thought, And I feel like once I have those like stressful thinkings or anxious thoughts that, hey, is he or she doing her job? Like, I feel like that's a bad sign. I don't know. But I'm curious, what do you think of that? And then for me, it kind of makes me want to start going the way of just firing them, because I feel like I shouldn't even have to be having those thoughts.
That's a very tricky one.
Yeah,
I've battled with that many times.
Yeah,
I also believe in how do I say, we all have our skill sets. We all have what we're good at, what we're bad at. I love personality and profile tests. Okay. I love them. I test everybody during the interview process. Mm-hmm. And I also have you take some more actually when you become a team member. Wow. Because I want to know your personality traits, what makes you tick, all that kind of stuff, right? Like disc profiles are so important in the interview process for me, for anybody who is is client facing. And then I have very specific disc profiles that I will and will not hire. And 16 personalities I love. And it's just very interesting, like what makes somebody tick, what they're good at, what they're not. And are you a starter or are you a finisher? A lot of, there are starters and there are finishers. Sure. Finishers aren't good starters. Starters aren't good finishers. Right. And so when you understand that, sometimes it can help you get clarity and support people. So yes, if I have to keep continuously looking at if you're doing your job, that's a major problem. That's a red flag. We run a remote company. If even for a second I think you're working another job, don't get me wrong, people have a side gig, cyber, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But if I feel like you're trying to work like another 40-hour-a-week job, you could feel it. You could sense those things. And when you sense those things, I immediately ask them if they're doing that. And if they say no, I find out like it's just there's no reason, like there's no going back, right? But but I do want to give a good example. I've got one guy, he's very, very good. He's very, very creative. He thinks outside the box, comes up with these really good strategies, but he's an implementer. He still goes in and like does the things, but sometimes he misses like important things, right? Like adding little parameters, adding little tags, adding like these little detailed things, detail-oriented things that are important that we can't miss. So so in theory, someone would be like, oh, I got to go always double check on it. And that's a problem, right? Because I gave him a clear process. He needs to follow the process, la, la, la. But I found that I put him in just a little pod, in a little team, where I've got one guy that is the more detail-oriented person to go double check everything, make the little tweaks, make the little adjustments, make sure everything, the finisher. And then he's kind of the starter because he goes in, he sets up the bigger picture, he sets up the bigger vision, the creative strategy, whatever it is. And then leads with that. And so the two of them together solve all the gaps, and I never have to worry about anything being wrong or not being correct, right? Needing correction or needing to follow them or anything like that. But again, I think it's just being clear about those expectations. So if you're a very small team, you have 3 people, sometimes people have to wear a lot of hats. So you need to go to them and you say, hey man, like, hey, if this isn't the job for you, it's not the job for you. But I love you working here. I want you to continue working here. You're a valuable asset, but I have this problem where, this keeps coming up and I need you to solve it. And if you can't, let me know and come up with a solution how we can solve it. Is it backup? Is it help? Is it assistance? Is it whatever? And if they can't come up with that solution and then they tell you that they're going to get it done. And
then we know the vibes. Yeah. I'm really enjoying this conversation because I feel like we're really diving on the topic on like what it takes to really create a competent team, because I'm sure you can say you couldn't do all of this by yourself.
No.
And something that I'm learning as an entrepreneur and just in general, if I just want to get anything done, there's only so much you can do on your own, whether it's a time constraint, whether it's just a skill constraint. There's so much constraints that force me to have to consider other options. And I'm glad that we're talking about this because it's just really interesting how you're going about your thought process towards like hiring and firing people, because I feel like it gets so crucial, especially as you continue to grow your business. So yeah, thanks for sharing this, Samir.
Well, it's definitely your leverage, right? Yeah. Like it's so cliche, but leverage is so important.
Yeah.
And it is like if everybody I hire needs to be a subject matter expert. They need to be better at the thing that I'm hiring them for than me.
Yeah.
And I want to learn from them.
Yes.
I want to get better and I want to get my better knowledge and understand, but I always want them to be better. And I always want everyone on my team continuously learning. I give them time to be learning. I make sure that they're learning. It's in their, bonus structures and everything that we do. And it's so important, especially in the age of AI and everything else. Your team just needs to be constantly learning, constantly iterating. How can I integrate AI into my job? How can I integrate, new software tools that are coming out, all those types of things, because it literally becomes your leverage. And if you feel like you're hiring people who are not as smart as you, or people that you feel like you have to, be smarter than or whatever, then I check out your ego. I get your ego in check.
Yeah.
That's probably the bigger problem that you need to solve, and you're never going to go anywhere without,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we all need a little ego to drive things, but you get the idea. Like, if you've got a bad ego problem, you're never going to hire people that are stronger and better than you. And that's a problem, right? So I just want to surround myself with people that are smarter and better than me and constantly learning, because they love what they do, and if they don't, it's not a good place for you.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. When I find my virtual assistants or people I hire, I often go on Upwork to make my hires. And I guess whether I'm looking for someone to help me generate leads or do marketing, I feel like for every 3 people I hire, I finally found like one really good person. I'm curious, like, what do you feel like your success rate is in regards to hiring?
LinkedIn's
more or less. Oh, you use LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah, LinkedIn's definitely my best place for sure for hiring anybody, especially full time. I use Upwork for tasks more than anything. You know what I mean? Hey, I just need my books cleaned up. I need, I need a specific, I need a Python developer to fix this line of code, whatever it is, right? Then I love Upwork. I find that one person, I give them the one project, I interview them, I make sure they can do the task, they know the task, and they get it done. Great. Not to say that I haven't found team members from Upwork. Like, a good example is we do a lot of conversion rate optimization, and it's hard to find A/B implementers. So it's easy to find developers, but it's really difficult to find these developers that understand the A/B testing software, like Optimizes of the world and these tools. And so again, it's very specific. It's like, I need someone who knows VWO software really well, who knows development and can go and do these things. And then they may turn into a full-time team member. But I think the problem with someone on Upwork or any of those contracting websites is like they're already in the mentality of being like an independent contractor, and looking for lots of gigs and looking for lots of jobs. There may not necessarily be looking for like, oh, this could be my full-time thing. They just already have that in their mind. Like they're a solopreneur, they're a freelancer. Like they've already have that mentality. Whether or not it translates doesn't matter. And so every once in a while you may find someone and they go, it could turn into a full-time thing and I'd be really excited about it. That would be amazing. And I'll stop doing Upwork, whatever. But once you have the itch, you have the itch. It's a little hard to let go. So, I think it's a little tricky. And you can find fractional people on LinkedIn. You can find part-time people. I've started with people part-time. Just like, hey, we don't have enough of a need, but I want to get you in with the intention of getting you full-time within 90 days or however long. As long as we hit these targets or whatever it is. And most people are very open to that, just depending on what their financial needs are or whatever, obviously.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like finding the right person to be a part of your team requires a really deep level of self-awareness. As I heard you speak, like I felt like you understand like the certain things, like even when you mentioned like them being a solopreneur, like they're probably not going to stay in the business for and I feel like that little bit of self-awareness is needed to make great hires, and it's very interesting, and so talking about all the things that you have been building, and you've built this great business, and I know you're in the business in the process of building your Web3 platform of Avanti. I'm curious, Samira, what would you say has been the most pivotal decision you've made in your life in general? That's either like currently or has this transformed you into the man you are? What would you say is like the biggest decision you ever made in your life, and why was that?
Wow, that's a hard one. Most pivotal moment in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's a big one for sure.
You know what? I don't know. I have the answer, but it wasn't like a moment. It wasn't like, okay, on April 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Okay. But it came from my life coach. So I got this amazing life coach, and she's incredible, and which I encourage anybody to get a great life coach. It's amazing. I didn't feel like I needed a therapist. I needed someone to bust my chops, push me, and right.
But sorry, because I want to cut you off there real quick. I have a life coach too, man. And before I understood the difference between a life coach and a therapist, I was having the same problem. I kept going to therapists, but it just kept talking about problems and depression and like, and they assumed like there was something wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with me. My life is great. I'm doing great. I just want to keep doing better. For listeners,
push me here. Challenge me. It's
a very important and small distinction for people like us who are always seeking to do better. Because I don't think life coach is as popular as a term, but it's more towards that positive growth side in comparison to this therapists who are just focusing on like problems with you.
100%. So like hiring her, certainly there was a date and a time that I hired her, but like hiring her was 100% one of the most pivotal. And I have my seasons. Sometimes I work with her really closely. Sometimes right now we're kind of on a hiatus. We have a call like once, I don't know, every 6 weeks. No cost. She just wants to catch up with me because we love each. She loves me and all this stuff, and I love her. But the one of the things she really challenged me on right away was just enjoying the ride. Because she was just like, you're always in the future. You're always chasing this next goal. You're always chasing this next deadline. You're telling me you're not going to be happy until you reach this moment. And you're always in the future. And, luckily I was never in the past. I didn't have that problem, which a lot of people, but the point I'm getting at is she just really challenged me to be in the present moment. And it's so hard for us. Right. And you can do things like meditation and all these things that certainly help with those, helping you get more centered and getting more present. But she gave me little things, just, every, when I make my coffee in the morning, I have very, ceremonial coffee making, whatever regime, if you want to call it that, and, and I'm always present. I don't have my phone on. I don't have my phone near me. Right. I'm just smelling, hearing, right, just like what are my senses in front of me, and just those couple of minutes every morning slowly had like this compounding impact of doing it more and doing all these other things. And then it just opened the door for so many things, right? It enabled me to like just start enjoying the ride, start being happier, making different decisions in my life, taking more time off, not stressing about, okay, I got to work 1,000 hours a week to hit this deadline. I'm not going to be happy until I'm a, multi-millionaire, whatever it is, like, and it just had this snowball effect on me that was incredible, because then it just like, it helped me lead a life that I'm very proud of, that I love my life awesome, more than anything, right? Personally and certain, professionally and everything, that's great. But like, just personally, I'm just so happy and I love it. And because you start making conscious decisions, and you start opening yourself to whatever it is, different paths and different opportunities. And so had I not done all that, I feel like I would have been on a different path than I am now. Right. Because I still would have been, whatever it is, I still would have been, chasing something or in something, or, I don't know what it is. And yeah, I don't know. I could probably go on and on.
No, I mean, I love this topic. As you're speaking, there's this quote that I read. It said, "Don't let your ambitions rob you of your present blessings." And I feel like that speaks a lot towards the growth you have. And honestly, I've experienced a similar transformation in my life, because I noticed that sometimes like your ambitions can come at a cost, man, because you get so obsessed with what you're doing, you literally forget everything else, and like it can cause a lot of anxiety. So I get it. It's like you want to have a balance of being present. And as I heard you speak, I was thinking about the book, The Power of Now. I don't know if you're familiar with that book. But it's by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks a lot about being present with a lot of things. And I remember after reading that book, I had a similar feeling of what you're talking about, of just really enjoying everything, like going out for walks and like really enjoying that, or going to play music, or I start off my days every day with like push-ups and pull-ups. And for me, it's kind of feels a bit meditative and or even journaling. So yeah, I love what you say, man. And it's curious, do you feel like once you started embodying that presence of being present, do you feel like that actually helped your business more, or things slowed down?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I worked less and I got more accomplished.
Interesting.
And we moved faster and we made better decisions. And right, because when you're in the hustle, like, and I respect the whoever,
David
right?
Goggins of the road.
I respect the Hustle Nation guys. I do, and I get it, right?
Yeah.
The younger generation is lazy AF and all this stuff, right? So for sure, push them, get them to get off the couch and go hustle a little bit. But when you actually start hustling like 100 hours a week, and you never enjoy yourself, you never go on a vacation, you never take time off, you go, well, this could happen or that could happen, or oh, what if a client messages me, or this and that, all these things, right? You like live in that space. And then so then when you have like a crossroads, or you have a decision that you need to make, you might make the wrong decision, or worst case scenario, you might not even realize you're at a crossroads, because you're just trying to drive as fast as you can. So you just fly by the fact that you could have just taken a right turn, and that right turn literally said shortcut. Yeah. Right. But you didn't even see it. So it gives you more time to be self-aware. It takes the blinders off. And then allowing, and we're all consuming all the time. We're on our phones, we're on our computers, we're consuming. And so you never give your brain a chance. And I think it's a hard thing, right? A lot of us are stressed and all these things. So the stress comes in right. But that's what you're essentially, one of the most important things you're trying to overcome. And when you're able to overcome that, in those whatever, like those, quiet moments, let's call them, that is where the best ideas come from. So that's why everybody, I have the best ideas in the shower.
Name, that's me. Yeah.
It's because you never give yourself enough time to just be quiet inside, right? It's like when you're in the shower is the time where you're not doing anything. You're feeling these senses. Okay, I feel the water. I feel this. Wow, this amazing idea comes to my mind, right? So like you said, just go for more walks and do this stuff. And it's tricky. It's like, okay, when I go for a walk, I want to listen to a podcast or an Audible book, or I want to keep learning and doing these things, right? And set time aside to do those things. It's important. But if you're constantly doing them 24/7, you're never giving yourself yourself a break. Then, you never allow those ideas and moments and everything to come in to then say like, oh, whoa, I could do it a different way. Like I just came up with this huge idea, this new program, this new funnel for us, like, and it was just it just happened, right? It was just like we're, in this moment of just, quietness, stillness, whatever. And it just came to my mind, like, I need to build this thing. I need to build this course. This is what it needs to look like. This is how it's going to look. This is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I need to get to work right now. I'm excited about this. And then it completely transformed our business. Right. But like that idea wouldn't have come to me if I was just like, okay, grind it out. SEO, what do you do? Check the ads, go, do this, do that. Right. Like you're busy. And you don't get, you don't get a chance to let those ideas come.
Yeah, it's I feel like that anxious state can really just make you focus on all the little small things that aren't really the big movers, because you're so stressed out. You feel like you might want to micromanage your teammates, or you might want to have to just do a lot more work than is actually needed, where what you really need to be doing is I guess, that classic thing of working on your business instead of in your business. And I feel like that present mind state allows you to flow your ideas more easily, sounds like, which is interesting, man. So I can definitely relate to that a lot, sir, man. I'm glad you do it. And then also, just for the sake of sustainability, I feel like it allows you to do what you're doing on a more sustainable fashion that you're not even attached to it. You can just do it on like for much longer. Whereas like I do feel like a lot of people gain wealth at the cost of their own mental health, but I feel like with you, with the way you're describing, the way you're doing it, it feels like it's more sustainable and it's not this huge burden on you to just have to like succeed or whatnot.
For what? I'm grateful for this moment where, we had a family friend and lives in Maui, uber rich. Okay. Uber rich. And everything, right? Everything you can imagine. Okay. Just whatever it is, the nicest house you ever been to in Maui, cars, bike, everything. Right? And is one of the unhappiest guys I've ever met.
Wow.
Right? And on the surface, he looks super happy, but he's just not. And he's like, been divorced 3 times. His kids don't want to talk to him. He's still obsessed with his first wife that got away. Right. Like all these things because he just put work first.
Yeah.
Never vacation, never took any time, and like, okay, amazing. He has all this money to show for it.
Don't know what to share with.
Yeah, but he only has like superficial relationships that he buys for the most part, and has all and just like is virtually like, is really unhappy in his core. And okay, can go spend money and do the things and you of course, if you're not making ends meet, okay, you got to hustle, you got to put in the time,
of course,
work, right? You got to make it happen because obviously that's struggle and that's difficult. You just got to bust your butt to get there. But once you're making ends meet, if you're making 6 figures, you're doing good. You could, you don't need the most expensive rental or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't need the fanciest car or whatever, right? Like you could pay the bills, you could take care of yourself. That's really the time where it's like, okay, and I think one of the most important things too is just knowing what your core values are.
Yeah.
It's so important because I found that once I actually understood my core values and went through that process, and it's really easy to do, you can look online, like ways to find your core values. But once you understand what your core values are, then you really on a daily basis, it doesn't need to be daily basis, but you start to see like, is my life in alignment with my core values or not? So family becomes one of your core values and all you're doing is working 100 hours and you're not spending any time with your family. There's a misalignment there. And so you're just not going to be happy. So if you just set the time aside to, right. But like, if success is one of your core values and now all you're doing is wasting time and goofing off and you're not working, okay, then you're also not, not in alignment with some of your core values. So I feel like when you get aligned with those and that's when things get, the fulfillment happens, right? Like, I think it's hard for us. We all look for our purpose and we may or may not know what that is. But at least if you're in alignment with your core values, you're on the right path to like, discovering your purpose or being, in alignment with your purpose, whatever.
Man, yeah, man, I love that shit, man. This is great, man. And thank you for sharing about that guy in Maui because it's really interesting, man. I feel like I don't know. I feel like the key to life for me, at least, is balance and having balance. And I feel like too much of anything is not a good thing. And I guess in his case, he had too much wealth and he didn't balance that with genuine relationships. Hence why he doesn't seem as happy. And when I apply that to my life, I feel like it's a weird place, man, because honestly, from 1 to 10, I'm extremely happy, bro. I feel like I'm one of the happiest people I know. But then, you have a desire to want to be more and gain more. And for me, I'm in that territory. I'm making 6 figures and I'm comfortable. But sometimes I feel like, oh, am I too comfortable? I want to gain more, And that's kind of why I like introspective battle. It's like, I'm happy. I'm making 6 figures. Why do I really need to like own more real estate? Why do I really need to create more businesses if I'm really happy? But it's like, well, what else is there to do? And that's kind of the introspective battles I be going through and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I always end up prioritizing my peace and I don't regret it, So yeah,
it's important. No, and it's amazing, and it is like it. And I think that's the thing. You don't compare yourself to others, and you just set your own goals, right? Yeah. And just be okay with that, right? Yeah. Like there's people that just want to, have a farm and like live in their own property and live off the land and not have a lot of money and just have animals. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I completely
There's people
agree.
that want to be billionaires and just, do whatever. Okay, there's also nothing wrong with that. But like,
Yeah.
don't judge someone else for, having different goals and whatnot. And, and I think the other thing is they can change, and that's okay. All right. I mean, that's really important as well. Like, my core values change,
As you get older.
every once in a while, right? I mean, one of my top ones was adventure, and I needed to constantly making sure I was getting into some kind of an adventure, because if I wasn't happy, right? And then I ended up traveling full time for over 3 years, went to over 30 countries.
Wow.
My life became nonstop adventure. Every time I stepped out the door, it was an adventure. And and then after I did that for 3 years, 3.5 years, whatever, I was like, okay, adventure is no longer one of my core values for now. I'm going to actually bubble up adventure now under freedom, because my new definition of adventure is being able to have enough freedom that my adventures are that much more crazy, that much more extravagant, and they're less frequent, but they're more, whatever it is, right? Like they're just even more, doesn't need to be extreme, but you get the idea, right? And so then it became a different goal, right? Okay, and now that changes, right? All right, like now I'm setting a goal to do this other thing, and then spirituality bubbled up into my core values, which wasn't a core value before. So I'm like, okay, now I need to set time aside to do that, and then fulfill that kind of itch or desire or whatever it is that is now giving me fulfillment. And it's totally okay, right? Like to have those things change. I mean, before you have a family's probably not a core value, and all of a sudden you have kids, all of a sudden that becomes a core value, right? Like like that's great.
And acknowledging that change, Bros, is so important, because I feel like as you grow, it becomes a natural evolution of how things happen, and I feel like allowing yourself to not feel shame for not sticking to your goal for however long, I think is important. And I love that you said that. But in today's age where there's so many different distractions in social media, I feel like what you're saying is great, Samir, but it's easier said than done. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go watch, I don't know, one Alex and Rosie video, or like this video, and then it starts ringing your head, and you can just kind of go into these loops, which I don't think is a bad or good thing, but I feel like it can throw you off depending on you. Or I don't know what you're seeking. It can help.
Yeah, but it is like a lot. Thank God I saw he did a video the other day, and I saw it, and he was like, hey, if you if what you want is just to work like 10 hours a week and spend time with your family and do this and go on vacation, do that and do that, he's like, great, you figured it out. That's awesome. Like, he's like, for me, it's work, but for you, it can be something different. And I'm like, finally, thank you for finally saying it, man. I'm sure he said it in other videos. I don't know those videos. And I'm like, thank you, like, for acknowledging. And I hope everybody sees this, because it is important. And I think, like, as long as I mean, and just making sure you don't have any kind of FOMO of your own, but being really careful to acknowledge, like, if you worked really hard and you attempted that thing and you learned from it, whether it was success or not doesn't matter, because because now you can take that experience onto the next thing and iterate on it and get better and improve. And it was time well spent, and you can't be upset because you didn't do as well. Like, we can't compare ourselves. You and I are totally different people. We've had different life experiences. We have different, levels of knowledge and experience in all different areas. Right. And so I can't expect to go and do the same thing that you're doing and vice versa. So it's, comparison's like the worst thing you can ever do. I was definitely one of those people. There would be so many times I'd see this agency and I started 2 years before they did, and I've got a great team. Why am I? They're at 5 million already. I should be at 5 million. And it's like, it's the worst thing you can do. And so when you finally, and again, like you said, so much easier to say it, to do it. But when you try somehow release that, it's like the most freeing thing ever to just go like, okay, like, but if you just went and you knew that you need to work on a project and you need to get it done, and you just went and watched Netflix all day, and it was like, it was like Love Island or something like that. Like, all right, man, all right. Like, well, you maybe you should have gone and worked a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? But like, some days I just chill and I relax, and I look at my wife and I go like, hey, I'm just going to chill today. And she goes, great, you deserve it. Like, do whatever you want. Good, like, you bust your butt, just do whatever. Like, great. It's amazing. Right. Like, because she knows I work hard, and and there's never, we're not in lack. We're okay. So like, it's fine. Like, who cares, and I think that's so important.
Man, I'm really loving this conversation, man, because I can tell that. So you seem like you are very business oriented, but you also have the spiritual component to you, which is awesome. And I'm in the same case. I would say I'm business oriented, but I also have the spiritual side. and I have a strong relationship with God. I feel like I don't come across people who have both. It's either they're really spiritual and they're not really doing a lot, or they're doing a lot but they're not paying attention to their inner self. And so, to have someone who's is both is interesting, and I'm glad that we're able to have a conversation that we're talking about balance, because I think it's very important, man, to have. And it's good, man, because honestly, I have these intrusive thoughts of like, wow, look at this podcaster, he has millions of views or whatnot, like why don't I have? And then all these intrusive thoughts that don't even serve us, like, and most of the time I don't even think they're true. It's like, it's just our mind like messing with us, you know what I'm saying? And if it is true, it probably came at some cost we would never have wanted to take ourselves, or be willing to do, you know what I'm saying?
You need to somehow look at it with like this, like, not, first of all, like a non-judgmental lens for sure, but then also this, like, okay, I respect this person. I'm happy for them, right? Don't be jealous. That's the worst thing. You don't want to be in that energy. But then just acknowledging, like, okay, hey, if they do have millions of views, and like, okay, what is it? Like, what maybe what did they do differently? Like, I love the term funnel hacking and all those types of things, right? And analyzing, like, what did they do differently and stuff like that. So then, because you're able to get out of your own head and then just look, okay, is there something that I see that they're doing that I'm not doing, right? Whatever, what is it, right? Oh, I realized I release a podcast once every 3 months and they're releasing one every week. Okay. Well, that's a clear differentiator, right? Like, okay, I need to start getting one episode a week, right? But then if I start checking off all these boxes and I'm like, okay, like, what is it? Then that's where you just have to kind of, just be content, and as long as you do the work, like, be proud of, doing the work. And I think to your earlier point with, we're getting accustomed to this instant gratification now.
Yeah.
And so that's a tricky one too, because you can't just start a podcast and be, I think a podcast is a great example. You can't just start a podcast and all of a sudden you're going to be Joe Rogan. Like, forget about it. Right. Like, and you probably will never be Joe Rogan either, because you probably don't have the personality.
No.
You don't have, like, he already had fame before he became a podcaster.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So like there's so many outside things that you can't even, and there's even one here in Vegas that's one of the most successful podcasters I've ever seen. His numbers are, he has some of the craziest guests, all this stuff. I went, I was like, I need to know how. And I went, I found out like all his views are fake. A bunch of his followers are fake, like all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, all the power to him, because he's able to bring on the biggest guests ever. He's able to throw these huge events. So like, he's doing something right.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I'm like, I'd rather have 10,000 views that are like real listeners than tell you I got 1 million, but 900,000 of them are all fake, right? Like, and so that's just for me personally. But if you could do it and it doesn't matter to you, great. Like, it doesn't matter. Just, if you're going to use it for good, use it for good. So yeah, I think it is so true.
And and I'm glad you said this, because when I first started off my podcast, there was ego in it. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh man, like maybe I could be the next Joe Rogan or whatnot, like, and I still hope to at least grow my brand that big. But I started like messaging all types of big people, like NBA stars, like just the biggest rappers on Instagram, only to just get left on red or like no response. And I'm like, I got humbled real quick. I'm like, why the hell would they even? I only did like 3 episodes. I don't even, it's like, who am I? And it's like, why should Jay-Z or Nas respond to my freaking like that? It's like, well, who am I? But I think for me, even when I did get high profile guests on, I think it was as great as it was still just a conversation with another human being. 100%. And it was like, I felt like I don't get a starry eyed when I talk to big people anymore. And to be honest, I've had a lot more conversations where the guests may not have been as big, but I just enjoyed the conversation a lot more. And for me, I'm like, honestly, as long as I can just consistently be myself and not sacrifice my integrity at the expense of another thing, I'm good. That's me, and if it's my calling to be really big, that's great. But as long as I'm being consistent and doing this each week, like I'm getting better, that's what I'm proud of, and
consistency and being unapologetically yourself. I think this is a weird thing that this is actually one of the new things I'm really preaching lately. is like, when you start talking about building the personal brand and doing all these things, like leaning into that is so important.
Yeah.
Because when you are unapologetically yourself for whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to resonate more with the right people.
Yeah.
Versus just trying to put on this mask or facade or whatever it is. And people just know, just know.
I was speaking to a YouTuber content creator who was on this platform. His name is BizPath, but he says something well. He's like, do you want to be well known or known well? And I thought that was really powerful, So yeah, I guess for me it's more about, like you said, that connection and really harvesting a great connection versus just having lots of views of people who don't, or just casually listening or don't really care for you at the moment. So yeah, I love it, man.
And it's tricky because, like, again, to the social media aspect, this is, I gave this awesome webinar last week, and in the webinar, like, I was talking to musicians and stuff, and I'm talking to them and I'm saying, like, hey, you're all upset because you got 10,000 views, 10,000 down, 10,000 views or whatever on your reel, and you feel like that's not a lot. And I like show what a picture of 10,000 people in an auditorium looks like, and you're like, whoa. And you're like, would you like, are all of a sudden, is this 10,000 people like don't matter anymore?
Yeah.
And and it's so true. And I feel like you can have, again, I think podcast is a great example, but I think it translates into business, translates into everything. If you could just talk to 100 people and you can positively impact one person.
Yes. Yeah.
That's just going to be so much more beneficial to them and to you and to everybody versus, I got 1 million people to watch me for 10 seconds or 50, whatever it is. No, I didn't change anybody's life at all. And you know what I mean? And so,
it's interesting. Like, the digitalization of things, I feel like desensitize our feelings towards a lot of these things. Like, back then, if we were speaking to a large crowd, public speaking around 10,000 people, we would think we're the shit. Like, everyone would think, well, look, there's 10,000 people here. Nah, like, we do it literally every single day. And so I don't think people take it for granted because they see other people doing it all the time.
100%. Yeah. I get less than 10,000 views on my reel. I think it didn't do well. And I'm
yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's interesting, but I'm loving this, bro, and I think I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and I'm just also curious because you mentioned that you are a world traveler, and I think you said you've been traveling the world for 3.5 years. Then all of a sudden you felt like you just felt the need to stop. First of all, how was your traveling experience, and what made you want to stop? That's because that's interesting. It seems like
I slow down. Let's say that slow down because certainly not. I don't want to stop. I'll never stop traveling. I love traveling. I think everyone should travel. I think it's so important. Everybody should. You should get out of your comfort zone. Go explore other cultures. Go explore other countries. Right? Like, it's just so important. I can't stress that enough. If you've never left your state or your country, like, just book a trip, like, just get out. And so, but because it changes your worldview and you see things differently, and it can positively impact your life so much, and if you especially go to developing countries and you see how good you got it, depending where you are, right? Don't get me wrong, obviously if you're in a developing country, whatever, but you get it. Still in a developing country, there's still so much, a lot of times you got better, you have a better sense of community and so many other things that we lack, right, in America so much. But no, I mean, it was amazing. Like, I felt the need that I really needed to. For me, freedom's one of my top core values, going back to core values, and so, like, there's nothing more freeing of just getting rid of all your stuff and just leaving, and just grabbing the next Airbnb and just experiencing new places, new cultures, new food, new everything. So it was amazing. I loved it. But once you're go like that, it's like, all right, it's another city, it's another waterfall, it's another hike, it's right. And so then it's like, okay, like, all right, now it's starting to, like, wear off on me, right? Or, like, of course, I'm in this new place, it's amazing, and I'm looking forward to it, and then I'm like going to all right,
I did this
okay, this is, there's something else, that there's something not wrong, but okay, like, I'm not doing it for the same reasons that I, was doing it. And then, so I mean, for me to slow down was just, I mean, I think once you live out of your suitcase for 3 years, it's good enough. You
Yeah,
know, I'm ready to like have my stuff again. And I miss my car a lot. And you know, there's activities that, you know, I wanted to get a UTV and start getting to the racetrack again and stuff. It's hard to do that when you're traveling full time. So certainly I wanted to have some things. Yeah. And then, but it got instilled in me still. Like I'm going to have multiple homes around the world and stay in those.
Okay. That's
here,
dope, man.
There, you know, oh, let's go spend the summer in Spain, whatever. Let's just go.
Yeah. Oh, that's dope, man.
I think when you have that freedom, it's amazing. And you know,
that's true freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I respect that. That's dope, man. That's dope, man. Yeah. I love what you said, you know, because it just reminds me of, again, I just feel like it goes back to like too much of everything can't be good. It sounds like you were traveling too much. I don't think there's anything wrong with traveling, like you said, but it's like when you're just doing it all the time now, it's like, all right, well, am I just doing it just to travel? Or am I really trying to enjoy the moment? Like, and it sounds like that's what you were going through essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So now, you know, got a home base, whatever, and still travel a lot. I mean, especially for work, I travel a lot. So, you know, I'll be in Miami 2 weeks. I was just in Arizona, I was just in LA, you know, just, you know, I'm bombing around for sure. But, yeah, I think it's just important to, you know, again, just, you know what you enjoy and no judgment. You know, you love that hotel in Cancun and you want to go to that same hotel every year. All right. You know, I might think you're boring, but it might be fulfilling for you and you have a great time and it relaxes you. And that's amazing. That's great for you. That's awesome. Right. Like, so, but you figured it out. And you figure figure out what makes you happy and do that. You know, the idea of going to the same place, you know, twice a year for the next 5 years for me is not going to be, you know, not going to be as enjoyable. Right. So once you find that out and you experience those things, it's great.
Yeah, I'm curious to just hear your thoughts on this because I'm Nigerian and I went to Nigeria, and you mentioned how going to a bunch of different developing countries can broaden your world view. When I went to Nigeria, my homeland, like it definitely broadened my world view because even though they didn't have as much in terms of as Americans did, I found myself that they were a lot more happier, and when I was there, like there wasn't much to do, and I would literally ask my cousin, like, hey, what do you guys do all day? And he's like, we literally just tell each other jokes and laugh. I was like, what the hell? Like, he's like, yeah, that's all we do, bro. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And like they were just happy doing that. That was very eye-opening to me. And that was 10 years ago. And to this day, I still remember that. I'm curious, was there an environment that you went to that really like changed your perspective or like just made you look at the world differently because you went to a country or so?
I mean, yeah, I don't know where I belong. So I think as I've traveled, I'm always looking for that. Where do I belong? Right. And what am I looking for, you know, in a place to live and in life and all these things. And, you know, does this place accomplish that or not? You know, I mentioned the you know, community aspect, for example, like that's what I'm looking for. I want strong sense of community and things like that. And, you know, and so when you see those things, I think, you know, to your point, right. It's like they have some community, they have this aspect, they have people they can rely on, you know, and they're being in the present moment and just enjoying it. And like, they kind of accept life for what it is. And they're not going to be sad that they're not driving a Lamborghini, right? And you know, and it's hard if you want that, and then you know you can't have it. That's a hard thing too. But you know, and I think it's a really tricky thing. But you know, I think for me, I mean, you it's just you just see different worldviews, which is so important. You just see different perspectives, you see different things, you understand, you know, the pros and the cons of wherever you're from or wherever you live, right? I think there's amazing things about this country. I also think there's things that don't make any sense to me in this country. So you start to understand those things more because you see it. You know, but I think the other thing is just like getting yourself out of your comfort zone and pushing those boundaries, right? Like I think if you just, you know, if you go to Dominican Republic and you fly there and then you know, take your shuttle straight to an all-inclusive and you never leave that all-inclusive and then you go home. All right. You can't tell me you've experienced like Dominican to some degree, right? It's like, okay, you experience some food. you probably met some people, but like, you know, you didn't really. So, you know, and I've, you know, I went to the slums of Thailand. I've went to the outskirts of Dominican, right? I've seen these, certainly how people live and their realities. And so then it's all of a sudden like, all right, I'm never going to complain about my, you know, at the time, 800 square foot apartment that I'm paying an arm and a leg for. And I keep being like, oh, it's such a small apartment.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm never complaining about that ever again. Right. I don't live in a shack or, you know, whatever it is. And so I think it just gives you this, you know, it helps you understand your reality versus other people's realities. And then I think also the, you know, challenge you out of your comfort zone. You can also have the opposite effect. Right. If you live in this little town, you know, I'm just trying to think of like a good example. Like, you know, I lived in the outskirts of Boston for a long time.
Oh, I'm from Boston. That's
nice. Oh, me too. Yeah. So that's where I grew up. Right. So like,
small world. Me
and
too.
if you're out there, you know, like it's all Subarus and Toyotas and Teslas, and that's fine. But like I'm in Vegas now, right? And like, okay, so if I can't go out on a Sunday without seeing at least one Lamborghini or something, right? Like, and you see multiple, you go to a place like Miami, you go to, right, you're going to see it everywhere. So then you're like, oh, I got to hustle. I got to strive for more. It gets you out of your comfort zone. It gets you, challenges you more because you're like, all right, this is my new sense of reality. And I want to get here and I want to chase this. Or maybe that's not what you want. Maybe your life, you know, you want a more chill life and whatever it is. And so I think it just opens your eyes to those types of things and you know, and I think just experiencing new things, like, you know, experiencing new foods and new cultures and hearing languages and whatever, all those things just I feel like make you smarter no matter what. So.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, it's small world. I would have never guessed you were from Boston. I've been in Boston for like nearly like 25 years of my life. Grew up in Hyde Park, so that's dope, man.
Nice. I was in Stoughton, so super close. I used to go to Hyde Park skate park all the time.
Small world, boss. Yeah, small world. And then second of all, man, I absolutely love the idea of you at least considering purchasing homes and or wherever you feel called to, because you know, I think a lot of people might say, oh, he's a rich knob or whatever, but for me, I think it's like a dope original idea that like allows you to embrace life for what you feel like is true to you. And I've traveled a lot within the States, but I've yet to travel a lot internationally, and I'm looking forward to it because I've noticed that every time I change my environment, it subconsciously it leads to a lot more growth, like whether I like it or not. And that's what I really like. Like I feel like there's a quote that says exposure leads to expansion, and the more you're exposed to different things, like the more your mind expands, and you just start thinking a lot broader. And I hear that as you speak. So man, yeah, man. You know, thanks for sharing, man. And I've really appreciated your time, Samir, and just your stories of traveling, your entrepreneurial struggles. You know, for people who may want to connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, or just reach out somehow, how can people do that?
I mean, I'm the only Samir Elkamouny in the world, so where you know you can find me everywhere, whatever, you know, social media or whatever, you know, LinkedIn and Instagram are probably my two strongest ones. So yeah, I mean, always happy to help out anybody, you know, no matter where they are. Yeah, I mean, I love chatting with people and helping people. So, you know, no matter where you are in your journey, if you're trying to get, you know, move up or you feel stuck or whatever it is, you know, I happy to help people if I can, you know, if I can't, I'll also be very forthcoming or, you know, or whatever it is. But yeah, I encourage anybody to reach out. It's such an interesting thing when you offer that and then people don't ever take advantage of it. Like when people offer that to me, I'm like, oh, I'm taking you up on that.
Yeah.
And it's so rare that people do. So maybe I'll make that the challenge for everybody listening to this. You don't necessarily have to reach out to me, but reach out, like go and like reach out to some people. And, you know, to Ike's earlier point, you'd be surprised who might be willing to respond to you. And, you know, you don't have to have a podcast to interview them. Just say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain about this thing. And, you know, most people are nice
very
people
open to it.
Yeah, I want to see you succeed, and don't ask for too much. Don't go and be like, "Can I have an hour of your time every week for the next 6 months?" Okay, no, you need to pay them for that.
Yeah, of course.
But come intelligently and eloquently and
intentionally,
compliment maybe or some kind, and show that you've done your homework and your research and you know them a bit. And if someone came to me and did that, I'd go far and away further in helping them than if someone just sent me a message, just like, "Hey, could you help me with this marketing idea?" Blah blah blah. Okay, like maybe.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I love what you're doing. I love what you're saying, bro, because I literally experienced this with my podcast. Before the podcast, I'm like, I had this like self-worth, self-limiting belief that I'm like, who would really want to talk to me, especially after I told you the story of me getting rejected by like stars. And then, I message you, I message all these other guests, and the type of people who have agreed to say yes to me, it still shocks me. I'm like, why? Like, and I don't want to like doubt my stuff or start putting like I'm not worthy, but it's just weird. It's kind of like it's always curious to me. But I think it goes to your point. I feel like if you're sincerely intentional about trying to meet someone, you'll be amazed the type of people
100%. And it is
an hour or two.
The self-limiting beliefs. It's so tricky. I mean, even when I started Fetch Funnel and I was sending prospecting emails, I was like, I should send emails as Sammy, because I don't want to message people as Samir, because then they're going to think English isn't my first language, and all the self-limiting beliefs seeped in, right? And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Sammy. And then, maybe I'll have a higher conversion rate. And if you're a beautiful blonde or something, you're probably going to have a higher conversion rate. I mean, unfortunately, statistics are statistics, but but don't limit yourself for sure into I just, and I don't know. I think it's just so important. Like, no, people just don't do it. It's just so weird. It's like, I don't know. I even meet people at networking events and stuff, and I'll talk to them and go, I loved your advice, this and that. Would it be okay if I like reach out to you sometime, this and that? I'm like, feel free. Like, I know who you are now. I like you. I know what you're doing. I know where you're at. Like 100%. You want to reach out to me? Like, I'd be happy to help you. And they're like, oh, I'm definitely gonna. And then they never do. And I'm like, I wonder why. Like, it's such an interesting thing. So I challenge everybody who's listening to this, please go and do that.
Before the end of my podcast, I literally ask every single guest, like, hey, how can people reach out to you? Because if someone like me is able to reach out to people like you, it probably means they will be willing to do it for other people too. And I always do it. Sometimes I wonder, I don't know if they're actually doing it or not, but I always give people that opportunity for access, because I think it's important, because I think you never know the type of person who can really change your life, man. And yeah, man, it was great. And
I have a gatekeeper, so if you want to be really cheeky, you could say, hi, Elska, could you please put me through to Samir? Because she's actually the one reading all the messages. But if there's a message in there and a question and she can't answer it, she's going to direct it to me. So.
Yeah, and then you get direct access to you, boss. And talking about limited beliefs, it's actually funny that we mentioned it, because I was going to end with this one question that I want to hear your thoughts on, Samir. What is a limiting belief that you're currently unlearning?
I think one of the things was like I'm going into a completely new industry that I don't have experience in. And so my self-limiting belief was, I may or may not be able to help this niche because I don't have experience in it, nor am I like that person. Right. And I think before I started Fetch and Funnel, I was like, all right, I need to make sure that I can actually walk the walk. I knew I could talk the talk, but I need to make sure I could walk the walk. So I went and I did jobs to prove that I could actually walk the walk. And then I knew I could. And I was like, all right, I give myself permission to start Fetch and Funnel, because now I'm not a poser. I don't have a self-limiting belief. I don't, whatever it is. Right. And I think that's kind of like has been my recent one where it's like, all right,
talking the talk.
Yeah. And then it's fascinating, because once I released that, I found that actually the thing that they need more than anything is actually not what I thought it was, which I don't have any experience in. The thing they need the most is actually one of the things that I have the most experience in. But had I not released that,
you wouldn't have
made that connection.
Yeah.
And and it's fascinating, and it's resonating, because I'm getting I'm getting really great responses from people telling me like, no, you're 100% right, this is just spot on, this is the thing. But I and it's and again, it's in the music world. The music industry is so weird.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I know you've interviewed some really interesting musicians and DJs and whatnot, right? And some really successful ones. And there is it's a very strange world. And when you're really up there, everything's hush hush. Yeah. They don't want you to know what actually worked, and and they don't want to tell you that and especially like labels and all those things. They want you to be trapped and all this other stuff. It's really messed up how that industry works. So that's why I'm excited that we're just going to completely revolutionize that entire industry for the better. For everybody involved, the artists, the fans, and even causes, because we have a whole philanthropic piece that we're putting everybody into as well. But that was a really interesting one for me, because I had and I think another one, we're growing crazy fast, we're hiring really big, and I also had some ones like, am I going to be able to manage a 2,000 person company? Like, wow, I've done that, right? Yeah. You're like, how will I be able? Well, I don't know, right? Like you have those thoughts kind of seep. Well, I've managed 25 or 50. Yeah. Like, all right, but this company's going to be 2,000 people. Like, oh, I don't know if I'm that person, but you just have to remind yourself, okay, before I managed 25 people, I had never managed 25 people. Before I managed 50 people, I had never managed 50 people, right? Like, it's just just learn it, right? And you just when you're humble about it, and again, bring in subject matter experts and get guidance, get mentors, all those things, like, you're doing all the things right.
And that's for me why I love entrepreneurship. Outside of, you can make a lot of money, I always feel like entrepreneurship is an introspective battle between yourself and your own beliefs, and it's kind of like conquering like stuff that's limiting you, and like kind of get into the next level. Like, one of my limiting beliefs was like, I suck at sales. That was one of my limiting beliefs, because I'm quiet. I like to listen to people more than I like to talk. I don't like talk. I other than the podcast, I really don't like to talk. So that's a limiting belief that I've had for years, and has stopped me from actually wanting to sell people. Until I've done this podcast and started communicating with people consistently, that limiting belief has gone away, because I'm like, I actually love communicating, and I actually think the best salesmen don't have to talk a lot.
100%. That's what I was just about to say.
When you go on TV, though, sales is associated with talking nonstop, being savvy with your words, blah, blah, blah. And so I had a limiting belief that just wasn't true. And actually, I'm actually really good at this, because I rather understand a person and ask questions, which is what sales is more than
that's it.
Just talking more, nonstop.
Yeah, you're talking about pitching versus selling, right? Like, versus like sales, and selling. Sure, I need to tell you why we're great and why you should believe me and all that stuff. But the best, the best is not, right. Is the best is listening and asking great questions and understanding the position I'm in. If you get me to talk more than anything, that's the best. Those are the best sales calls ever, because then I just tell you all my secrets. I tell you all the things, and then you just go, all right, Samir, well, you just told me that you have all these problems and this is what's going on. Like, do you want help with that or not? I'm the guy that can help you solve that. And then, actually, as long as you're able to fulfill on what you say, I think that's it. I think people oversell, and when they oversell, I actually don't believe you, because you shouldn't have to oversell if you're, if you actually are that good at what you do and everything else. If you're really that good, you become exclusive.
Yeah. But Samir, this was a super dope conversation. I really enjoyed it, and thank you so much for the time you offered me, and just the wisdom you shared and your stories. And remember, everyone, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ike.
Yeah.